Here are 9 signs that you experienced childhood trauma and how it may be affecting your parenting. But first, you got to remember that childhood trauma can also be as simple as growing up in a household where you were not witnessing adults operate from a high level of emotional intelligence. Where you grew up in a household where people were purely hyper reactive and projecting their emotions onto other people instead of taking accountability and responsibility for how they feel. Childhood trauma can be as simple as you growing up in a household with a parent who believed that you were responsible for how they feel, that everything in the world was responsible for how they feel, and not ever taking accountability for how they speak to themselves, how they think, and their ability to choose how to respond to their children and life. How is that childhood trauma? Because if you grow up around people who operate that way, you will be programmed to do the same. So all of those patterns and habits that you feel so strongly about transforming and changing in your own parent-child dynamic, forgive yourself constantly. Do not beat yourself up for things that you learned. Instead, move forward knowing that you are free and able to make different choices and practice making those different choices. The more you practice, the more skilled you get at whatever it is that you're practicing. So here are 9 patterns we may have picked up if we grew up in a household where the adults around us were not operating from emotional intelligence or from an awareness that they could make choices intentionally that were different from the choices our grandparents made with them. Number 1, you don't follow your heart. That may be a pattern you picked up in your childhood, listening to other people's opinions instead of following your own inner guidance, spanking and screaming and doing things that don't feel good to you in parenthood instead of following your heart. You can drop that pattern now. Number 2, blaming your child for how you feel. This may be a pattern you picked up, but your child is not responsible for your emotional regulation. You can drop that pattern now. Number 3, falsely believing that parenthood is the problem. Parenthood isn't to blame for how you feel. Parenthood is not the problem. You are free to change your perspective about parenthood to one that feels free, fun, and empowering. Number 4, consuming content and information, but not applying it to your life. Not applying the tips and hacks that will help you to experience more peace in parenthood. Talking about it, but not being about it. We may have picked up that pattern in our childhood, but you can drop it. Number 5, blaming your parents for the reason that you parent the way you do. You're free now. Free to make your own choices now. We don't have to blame others anymore for our actions. We can let go of the past now. Number 6, falsely believing that your finances are to blame for why you don't feel peace. You can drop that pattern now. 7, doubting yourself. Number 8, speaking to yourself negatively and being mean to yourself. And number 9 is expecting love and affection from children that you yell at or hit. No matter what you've been through, you are the cycle breaker. And that can feel heavy sometimes. But you are not alone.